So hi, welcome to the Noise Podcast. I'm Shane,
I'm Glory.
and we're here with,
Kevin from Valleyheart.
and we're asking some questions today about their upcoming album, Heal My Head. So congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to the announcement so far?
Thank you. Feeling really great about it. Yeah, really exciting.
The album is very good. I was listening to it earlier.
Mhm.
I very much enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Good Noise Podcast approved.
That's all we need.
Perfect. So is there any meaning behind the album title or cover art?
Yes, I would say for both. I think for the album title, it's the fourth song on the album, Heal My Head. And the song was written before I think we decided to have the album called Heal My Head. But that title in itself sort of wrapped up a lot of the themes I think that I was going for lyrically on the album, with struggles of time and the perception of time, and sort of how that relates to your sort of mood and mental state. So Heal My Head sort of was like a play on words of, sort of heal my head, but like the head of a clock as well, which sort of ties into the album artwork, which was interesting. I grew up with my aunt. She had a bird clock in her kitchen. And, this album has lots of themes about spring and nature and healing and sort of rebirth happening after sort of death and all these concepts. And, something that personified that were sort of the images of birds. But with the album also talking about time and trauma and sort of how those things all interlace. This cover was something that we built with the designer to kind of portray all those themes that I was trying to get across lyrically in a not so on the nose way, but in subtle ways, with the clock, the birds, the hands of the clock, the wallpaper sort of signifying patterns, that we might hold in our life or try to break as well. So yeah, it's all pretty integrated, and we're really excited how that all came out visually as well.
For sure. Wow, it sounds like you worked really closely with the designer then.
Yeah. So I saw an image of a bird clock one day just online. I was on Pinterest. I was trying to find a cooler way to say that, but I was on Pinterest.
There's no shame
And
in Pinterest.
there's no shame in there used to be shame in Pinterest for me.
Yes.
Now I've let go of sort of any expectations. I love Pinterest. I make mood boards like every week.
Fuck
So
yes.
much fun.
Fuck
I've
yes.
missed out for so many years, and I'm free now. So I'm
Good.
fully happy to say that. So I was on Pinterest and I saw that, like, an image of a clock like that, and it immediately sort of clicked in my head of, oh wow, this is what I want. So didn't want to use that image, so went to the designer, and we his name is Jordan Butcher, and we sort of built it together. He got a clock and sort of made it its own thing, got the wallpaper, and kind of developed a new idea from the inspiration from that other idea.
That's
That's
super cool.
perfect.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about your writing process for this album?
Yeah. Lyrically or musically or sort of all of the above?
All of the above, yeah.
Mhm.
Sure. Well, this is our second record. And I would say the writing process for this one was a lot different than the first album. The first album was collaborative, but I think this one was even more so, especially in the recording process. So we have our producer, Kevin Billingsley. I co-produced with him and also co-engineered and then co-mixed together. I'm in Montreal, Canada right now, and he's in Maine. And we use this program that sort of lets you stream audio from within your recording session in real time.
That's cool.
So he did a lot of the like bare bone mixing, and then we would get on the phone or get on this app and sort of mix together. So it felt really integrative. It felt really collaborative. We started writing it together as a band in early 2020. And then I started writing some of these songs before that, but I think we really started to hit it during the pandemic, like of many artists. This is sort of a creation of a pandemic record. I had gotten stuck in Peru, March of 2020. And so it was sort of a situation where my wife now and I went there and didn't know it was, COVID was going to get the way it did the second week of March in 2020, and
Yeah.
got stuck for a month there. But that's another story for another day.
That's
but
nuts.
I ended up writing a lot of the sort of initial lyrics for this album there in sort of that time of isolation, that time of reflection, and that time of a lot of sort of panic, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
So that sort of sparked a lot of, especially the first song on the record, Birth, was sort of tying that trip into how that all played in on the record. And then we met up and practiced and wrote a whole lot there from there on. I did a lot of the like demos on my own. I usually sort of bring a concept of a demo. But actually there were some songs in this album that there were no demos for at all. It was just sort of written on the spot. So the album's kind of a mixture of sort of me mapping out a pretty finished demo, even having elements of what would end up on the record, to other songs just writing from scratch with the group of guys. So it felt really, really cool to have that diversity where it wasn't just all of the things that on my hard drive that I was just bringing to the guys and they were sort of rearranging, but it was a mix of a bit of both, of sort of building from the ground up and then having other people come in and revise and rearrange.
For sure.
I know it's not directly related to the music, but we've spoken obviously to a lot of people, some that were like had to rush home from tour during the pandemic, but no one that got stuck in a different country at the beginning. So like, can we talk about that a little bit? Like what you were feeling, like just kind of what went on there?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah. It was an insane experience, unlike anything I've ever gone through before. We had been there for a few days. This was the second week of March when things started closing down, borders started closing. And so to elaborate a bit further into the story, we were in a town called Cusco in Peru, and we were traveling up to see Machu Picchu, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world.
Yep.
And on our way up, it's kind of hard to explain, but there's like a train you have to take. There's no real way you could drive there. It's sort of a lot of commuting you have to do to get there. When we were about an hour away from Machu Picchu, we were going to stay at a hotel that night, and the whole country closed down. And actually, funny connection to Valleyheart there is that the way I found out about the country closing, sort of before everyone else did, a Valleyheart fan from Peru sent me a DM and said, "Hey, saw that you're in Peru on Instagram. You should know that it's not really announced publicly yet, but as of tomorrow morning, the whole country is going to shut down, including the airports." And I specifically remember reading that text on this, one of the most beautiful train rides through the Andes, and sort of this dark, dismal feeling befalling upon me of like, oh, wow, this is going to be an interesting ride. And sure enough, it was sort of a struggle to get from that mountaintop back down to Cusco where all our stuff was. And then from there forward, we got stuck for about another 3 weeks there and ended up taking a rescue government flight home. Luckily, we found lodging. We struggled a bit at first, and it was sort of a bit of a panic, but we ended up finding lodging. And my wife is from Canada and I'm from the States, so we had to actually take 2 different flights. So it was a sort of a very, very crazy time. But I think how we often talk about it, it was at the moment such a time of panic in the beginning, but looking back, there was sort of a helplessness about the situation that provided this weird piece of whatever, like, we are in this situation. There is no negotiating our way out of it. There's just sort of waiting, because there was a whole period there we were just waiting for our flights to arrive. And there was sort of this, you have to accept that you are not in control of the situation, which seems to be a common theme for life, right? There are certain things that life throws at you, whether it's death or grief or heartbreak or some things that come along where you're like, wow, okay, like I have to go through this. There's no going around this. So I think that situation was sort of a microcosm of that concept, and definitely something that inspired and I pulled from when writing the record.
That's so nuts. And like, it's super crazy that like you found that out where you're going to see one of the 7 wonders of the world, and it's like supposed to be some really cool experience, and you're like, well, shit, we're not leaving, so that really sucks. Yeah. Wow.
And we didn't get to see it. Our trip, the excursion, was at 5 a.m. that morning. We arrived at 11, and we were the last excursion that was canceled. Like the one before us had gone. Like, we were almost there. We always joke that we have to go back and redeem our trip.
Hopefully the world doesn't shut down that time.
Right.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So to switch back to the record, I want you to tell us your favorite lyric off this album and the meaning behind it.
think I'll have to go with the first song, Birth. When I return to my birth, my body spread out in the earth, with fingers like roots on a seed, tears of my brothers watering me. I don't have any brothers, but I sort of metaphorically thought of all my friends and the people that I've shared life with, right? Because that's what family is, and friendship is some weird extension of that. So I grew up with a pretty close group of guys, and I think of them as my brothers. And when I wrote that lyric, I was sort of thinking back on, at the end of life, what will be the memories and sort of the moments that we'll hold together, and how will that help grow the next sort of generation coming along. So that's a lyric I feel very sort of emotionally attached to. I feel like that with a lot of them, or all of them, but that one specifically.
It's a very good
That's
lyric.
good.
Oh yeah. So how did the track list for the album come about? Did you guys write the opener be the opener, closer be the closer? Did you shuffle around, see what fits? What was that process like?
Ooh, this is going to be fun. Yeah, no, not at all. The first song, Birth, was actually the last song up until very, very far into the mixing process.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was completely rearranged. So actually track 8, Warning Signs, was the first song. And that went into, I think, back and forth. So it was like track, no, Warning Signs is track 8, I think. Yes, track 8. Track 8 into track 9 were, track 8 was number 1. And then the last song was, so the first song was the last song. So we decided that, it'd be really cool to start an album after listening to how everything had turned out recording wise. The last song, The Days into 626, felt like a great closer. And we didn't want to sort of slow it down again. That just felt like perfect as it was. And then Birth, which was supposed to be this sort of breath of fresh air after the whole album, felt really great in the beginning to sort of actually introduce the album. So it was really, really cool to contextualize something for like 2 years in your head, and then be like, wait, what if we took the last chapter of the book and we put it to the first chapter, and like, how does that change the story?
Yeah.
And it was really cool to see how that all interacted. And I think it worked out for the better for sure.
That's super cool. So
Yeah.
wait, like when you guys are working on an album, you guys have the track list order before like the record is fully mastered?
I have the track listing mapped out pretty in advance.
Okay.
I've always written like that when writing an album. I don't write it like I play a song, cool, that's a track 4 or track 5. But once the songs are all kind of done and we're sort of in that pre-production headspace, I think it's really important to start putting those pieces together, because I think it makes a huge difference in how a record flows and how the songs interact, and where certain lyrics can hit if they reference other lyrics. So I would say like 6 months before, once all the songs were written, I was already thinking about the track listing.
Okay.
Wow. We've never heard that before.
Yeah. Usually it's just like, we shuffled around when we got the masters, and that was the end of that. So
no, I think it tells a story, right? Some of my favorite albums ever are how the songs go into the other song, and how the emotion like rises and falls, and all those little dynamics of songwriting and all that stuff. So I love that stuff, and try to be pretty intentional about it.
I like that.
That's good. Love to hear it.
Yeah.
So would you be able to tell us where Headspace is at while you're creating this record?
Oh, wow. Okay. Another good one. Another heavy one.
Yes.
Well, like I mentioned, this was a record that we primarily wrote and recorded during 2020 and 2021. So I think a lot of us went through some pretty heavy doses of self-reflection during that time. So I wouldn't say I'm exempt from any of that. So it was in a place of processing a lot of life and things that have happened in my life. And I think our lives, we had a lot of conversations as a band as well. So I would say it was pretty rooted in understanding identity, community, again, and faith, levels of faith. I don't think this album is necessarily, our first album seems to have resonated with a lot of people who grew up in the church. which I did myself. And this album wasn't sort of to talk about that again. It was sort of moving towards a new direction. But I think a lot of it has to do with faith, not in the traditional way of like talking about God or church, but in a way of where do you place your hope when life seems to be turning on its head? And how do you arrive at those conclusions when you realize you don't have control over your situation and all these things? So I think it was in a pretty reflective headspace, and one that was, I was thinking a lot. I was listening to a lot of podcasts. I was listening to Alan Watts a lot, if you guys are familiar, but I was listening to like a whole lot of stuff and trying to really find inspiration and find sort of wisdom beyond myself as well. So
It's very nice.
Hell yeah.
I like how you didn't just kind of say this is just about, religious faith. It's just kind of like whatever in your time of need, whatever you look at and say, this is what I'm going to put my faith in. I personally, I like that a lot. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I don't even see it as that distinction, right? Where it's like, I don't think one is more valid than the other. I think everyone is really trying to figure that out. And
yeah,
I think you're spot on. It's like, it means something to all of us because no matter what, we're all, whether we know it or not, doing that, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Hell yeah.
Perfect.
So how do you recommend your fans to listen to this album for the first time? Should they do it in the car with friends, in the dark with headphones on? Is it a workout album, party album? What do you personally recommend?
Ooh, that's a good question. This is probably the hardest question you've asked so far, because I am a strong believer of sort of the outside situations of records defining the internal experience. So like certain records I listened to when I was traveling abroad or something, and that record now feels like the whatever region that was in, right? So I think it could be multifaceted, where it could be a record that you're in a season of life where you're just like, having fun and want to just to sort of scratch the surface. I think it allows for that, which I'm really excited for that too, where there's depth to this album, but also I think some of the songs just are fun. They feel good. They jam, and you can sort of listen to it surface level. But if you also want to dig deeper, I think it beckons you, and I think it calls you to dig deeper. So I would say all of the above. Like I really can't think of a situation where, I mean, obviously there are situations where, you don't want to blast it on your phone while you're in the library, but you know. But I think, I think it could work in a lot of different situations.
Hell yeah.
So this one should be super, super quick. Off the top of your head, I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words. No more, no less.
Together. Time. And hope.
Oh,
I like that.
those are
I was
perfect.
hoping you would keep with the tea theme.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Tyrannosaurus Rex.
There you go.
And can
That's
you tell us what the
perfect.
fuck that means?
That one's on your own. You gotta. That's the premiere. You gotta pay for that one.
Oh, there you go. That's fair.
So in the same train of thought, but with not as much pressure, is there a certain feeling or emotion you want your listeners to have while going through the album?
No, I don't think there is. I think I'm just curious. I'm more curious about what people will feel. I don't know. It's like sort of guessing the unguessable, right? Where it's like, I know what it feels for me because I wrote it. So it's a very different perspective, but I kind of just want people to sit with it. And I guess I hope it provides a language for people to talk about their life, their losses, and their journey. So
I'm because obviously we're having this conversation before the record comes out. So I'm assuming if the record were out, we were having the same conversation, maybe you'd have more of a baseline as to what you want people to feel because you've seen the reception to it.
Sure. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. But I also still think that everyone, I know it's music is so crazy, right? Where it could mean something so profound or sad to someone, and for someone else, it could be this joyful album that just reminds them of the best of times. So there's really, I guess, no telling. It feels sort of out of my control, but I guess I at least want people to connect with it and to be able to find inspiration and sort of hope to talk about things that maybe that we don't talk enough about, whether that be mental health and suicide and darkness and vulnerability. I think that is definitely a huge goal, to just get people talking.
Hell yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite memory that you made while creating this album?
Ooh. Favorite memory? I think it was during the writing process, for sure, where we would sort of meet up and grab our instruments and just write. And we had a friend, we have a friend who his dad had a basement that he let us practice in, and we would set up every couple days a week and just work on the songs. And it was really cool just to see them come to life. And we have endless voice memos and demos. And I think looking back on that time, there's a very profound sort of fondness for those memories, and so many things in the recording process as well. But there's something really special about sort of getting in a room and having this album come to life from the beginning.
Hell yes.
For sure.
I like
God,
that.
That's good.
Yeah.
So picture this: you're on tour, you're at a gas station for a rest stop. What is your snack of choice?
Pretzels, without a doubt. That was easy.
Hell yes.
Pretzels?
I'm known for, I'm the pretzel guy. Like I'm the guy that they're like, oh, Kev's the pretzel guy. Like he just loves pretzels. So that anyone in my life could have answered that question faster than I could have for you.
And just an FYI, we are moving into the food portion of the interview now.
Oh,
we do like food here. We got a couple questions about food.
I love it. I love food too.
Hell yes.
I would like you to specify what type of pretzels are we talking about, like soft pretzels, crunchy pretzels, the little rods, the nibs? What are you talking about?
I'm I'm a lover of all of them. You know, I could rock with the soft one, and then, you know, as for the hard, like I love the smart pretzels, like the healthy ones too. It's like, oh yeah, I love the concept for some reason. I just, my dad grew me up on them. I kind of chilled out a little bit. They were getting a little too, they were drying me out. They were like salty, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at one point in my life, I was like, why am I always so thirsty all the time? I'm like, oh, yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. So started drinking more water and cut down on the snacking a whole lot, and has really helped my health. So I mean, but I will not pass up a chance at a convenience store gas station to snag some pretzels. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
That's good. Have you ever made your own pretzels?
You know what? I haven't.
That's such a glory question.
No, I'm just saying it's really easy, and if you love pretzels that much, I think you should really try, because then you have unlimited pretzels. That's right. That sounds dangerous, but you're right. How can I be a fan if I'm not a creator? I'm just sort of a lazy consumer at that point. No. So on the topic of food, if the band was a dish, what dish would the band be? Oh, wow. Okay. Band was a dish. I'm trying to think of something. I don't want to say pizza. I'm sure you, no. You get that one a lot. We do get that. Yeah, I was gonna say
it's a good cop out answer, because like
I know I don't want to do it.
There's a way to like spin it so that it makes sense.
Right.
Even if your entire band hates pizza, it's perfect.
Toppings. Yeah. You know, we're a little cheesy.
Exactly. You get it.
Yeah. No, I don't want to go that route though. Huh. Now I'm just struggling to think of dishes in general. All I can think about is pizza and pretzels.
You're going to wind up going with the cop-out answer.
I'm just at a gas station looking at the sort of frozen spinning thing of pretzels and pizza. Like, that's all I can see right now. Oi, get out. All right, get out.
All right, we're going to a fancy fucking restaurant. Nicest restaurant in town.
Restaurant.
Exactly. Well, looking at the menu, what are you?
Well, I'm pescatarian, and Zach is vegetarian, and Chris is not. So we're definitely not, like, meat-based.
No.
So there's that. We love good pasta, but also you know what I'd say? We're a quinoa bowl with some salmon. We're a quinoa bowl with some salmon. Yeah, quinoa bowl with some salmon.
That's good.
Yeah, the salmon is because we're from Boston. We live near the ocean. You know, we got that sort of maritime vibe. Quinoa bowls because we love to eat some good whole grain stuff. So
quinoa is extremely underrated. Shit's so good.
Love it.
Fuck yeah. So for the last couple questions, we're gonna shift completely away from music and the band and go straight to death row.
Boom.
So if you're on death row, what would your last meal be with a drink?
Whoa. All right. Now I'm sort of thinking of combining all my answers. Sort of like a quinoa bowl with sprinkled pretzels.
Ooh, okay.
What would my last meal be? Well, I think think it would be lobster.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I think it would be a lobster with a side of my mom's rice and bean cooking. And that's really a weird combo, but I love seafood. I love lobsters, probably one of my favorite meals. But also my mom is a great cook, and she's Brazilian, so she cooks like the illest rice and beans.
Mm-hmm.
So like an odd combination of lobster and probably my mom's rice and beans.
That's good.
Oh yeah.
And your drink?
Wow. A drink.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, this is gonna sound so meta, but I feel like I would want a nice cold glass of water.
That's fair enough.
That's good. Yeah.
You know, I feel like I would have a moment where I'm like, I need to give my body back what it's made of. You know, like I need to sort of end this story with where I came from. I know it sounds. This is. Oh God, please edit this out. This is so bad, but in my mind it makes sense. It's like water. That's all. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing.
It's the beginning of life, man.
Beginning of life, and now it's the end of my life. You know,
exactly.
Sort of, that's what it would be. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Perfect. Love it.
Yeah.
So, if you could live in one fictional world for a week, where would you live?
Ooh. Okay. Movie / literature.
Yeah, comic book, movie.
Anything that doesn't exist that you want to live in.
Exactly. Any world.
It's gonna be a pretty nerdy answer.
Okay.
But oh man, this is just the first one that comes to mind. I don't know if this was sort of my final choice. I think I'd have to think about this a lot, but I'd say Kingdom Hearts.
Ooh,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I used to love that growing up, and I don't know, always had like a fantasy ever since I was a kid, like traveling in the world of Kingdom Hearts and all that stuff. So.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a perfect answer.
Waiting for a DM later to be like, I take that fucking answer back. It's actually this one. So I have the honor of asking the last question, and every single person that we spoke to has said that it is the most important question. What's your favorite color?
Favorite color is blue.
Specific shade?
No, all shades.
Fair enough.
Perfect.
All shades. Yeah.
Well, as I said, that's all the questions we have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
No, I just wanted to thank y'all for having me on here.
Of course.
Really
Of course.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for now. This has been Kevin from Valleyheart, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.